Today, we're going to be reviewing all of the dark units in Element Fission, and we are going to be referencing Summoner's War units to give you guys a better understanding of their skill sets. It's the same way we've been doing it for the other elements: fire, tree, water. See, I'm getting the hang of it. I'm getting it. Different game, similar, different game. I'm figuring it out, guys. Let's get this started. First up, we have, what do we have? The Steel Wings. So the Steel Wings is actually the closest to Mantora. All of these Steel Wings are really solid units. You can't go wrong building any of them. The Dark Steel Wings is the most similar to I'm seeing that now my face, since I changed the emulator and I was like, oh, it fits the screen perfectly. Now my head is in front of everything. So that's great. I suppose it doesn't really matter, the skill icons too much, but we've got the first skill, Shadow Bolt. Attacks an enemy 2 times. Each attack has a 50% chance to remove 1 buff. We have the second skill, Slow. They also, this changed, right? Because they didn't used to, when there's a debuff, now they actually show what it does. I think this is just the last update that they just did, where you can actually see this now. Because I don't think that this actually did this before. We see the multiplier, but that's part of a thing that you unlock. I think this is new. So we have the attack all enemies, 50 to 70% chance to inflict 2 turn speed down, absorb action bar by 10% each. A little bit better than Mantor. Mantor doesn't do it. Attack bar absorb, and then we have the Dark Mist, AOE, defense break, and damage overturn. Double AOEs, first skill strip, Dark LD3. Dark LD, isn't that redundant? It's Mantora. It's Mantora. Let's go on to the next one. So the next one we have, sorry, it's a little loud. Next one we have is Clockwork, which is very similar to the Dark Hellhound. So he's got the first skill, attack an enemy, inflict 2 turns speed down, damage based on your speed. Second skill is throw pickaxe, attack an enemy, attack ignores target's defense. This is not exactly like the Dark Hellhound though. This is more like, well, a lot of units ignore defense, but in terms of LD3s, maybe this is more similar to Shren, right? Or something like that. Because this one is actually similar to the fire, the tree. Clockwork is actually similar to Kali. So the Dark Clockwork, this kind of like Shren. And then we have the Light Alloy. Passive increases speed by 15 and increases speed by 15 for each buff possessed in addition. So actually, I mean, he's similar to the Dark Hellhound. He's not exactly the same as the Dark Hellhound, but he's also kind of similar to, there's a couple of units like this, kind of similar to El Sharion as well. But yeah, not a bad unit. Next up, we have the Dark Popo Rider. So this one is kind of a mix between a few different units. So this, like the other ones, for example, the tree one is basically Bernard, right? The fire one is basically Spectra. This one, kind of a mix of a few things. So it's a mix of the Dark Griffin, the Light Griffin, and the Dark Elemental. So we've got the first skill, attack an enemy, 70% chance to inflict 2 turn blind. We have the Popo Assault. I'm going to wait till you continue to type in your comments in the comment section about this skill, because I think there's a lot of places we could go with this. Which I'm not going to say. I will let you guys make the jokes for me. Attack an enemy, inflict 2 turn defense down and attack down. This is kind of similar to the Dark Griffin, because the Light Griffin doesn't have a defense break, attack break. The Popo Guardian, damage received from Light Element decreased by 50%. Kind of the opposite of the light, the shaman, the light griffin. From others is decreased by 20%, grants you 1 turn unyield and reflect if receive fatal damage. So that's kind of similar to the Dark Elemental here as well. Then we have the Dome Fighter, which the Dome Fighter actually, I really couldn't get a great, because these other ones are kind of similar to Copper and Bulldozer, more Bulldozer than Copper, but this one is really not like the Copper, like the Frankensteins and Living Armors. Like the Copper and Bulldozer. Listen, guys, I at least got some part of the names correct. At least give me that. We have a double hit stun. So this is similar to the Frankensteins, right? We have the Wild Pitch, attack an enemy, inflict 2 turn defense down, increases 50% of your action bar each if land a critical hit, damage based on your defense. Okay, so this is kind of similar to some of them do a defense break a single target defense break. And then we have this bounce ball passive. The ball you throw will bounce to an additional enemy, but the damage is reduced by 20%. I feel like this is similar to something in Summoner's War, but I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I'll come back to it later. And then I came back to it later. I'm like, I don't know what it's. I think it's one of the newer units that this is kind of similar to, but not necessarily in LD3. But next one we have is the Hog Chef. So the Hog Chef is kind of similar to, like, the water one is kind of similar to Water Garuda. That's not water. This is water, right? We got the cleanse and heal, and we have the increase attack gauge and attack up. And then the light one is kind of like the light Garuda. But this dark one, the dark one is actually kind of similar to a mixture between Crow and not necessarily aerial, but kind of like what the Archangel's second skill does. So we've got the charge attack enemy, increase the action bar by 10% of the ally with the highest action bar. We have the bandage, remove uncurable, incurable, and another random debuff on target ally, recover HP by 30 to 36%, and grant 1 turn defense up. So it's kind of similar to the Archangel skill too. And then we have this magical hamburger, because of course everyone needs a magical hamburger. Grants all allies 2 turns speed up and effect up, gain an extra turn after using this ability. Kind of similar to Crow. What is the speed? Oh, 6-star, speed plus 15. So speed plus 15 plus you get those extra, if you feed Dark Hog Chefs to this, you get an extra 5 speed on top of that. So it's 110 speed. Not quite as fast as Crow, but Crow this Crow with the A. So then we have the Dark Sharpshooter, fantastic unit. All these Sharpshooters are super, super good. So the Dark Sharpshooter is similar to the other Crow, the Crow without the A. So very similar. Dark Inugami, and then the other one is the Dark Heart. So this one, attack an enemy, inflict 2 turn defense down. When it's 6-star, damage based on target debuff count. And then we have this gang fight, grant all allies 2 turn crit up, and then teams up with 2 allies to attack an enemy. They make it easier to crit in this game. I know I've said it a couple times already, but just based on, especially the towers, the guild's towers, they're not actually towers. They're like chips and things like that. But actually makes it a little bit easier to not worry as much about the crit rate on these units. And then we have the wound marking, attack an enemy, inflict 2 turn defense down, and mark, damage increased by 30% for each debuff on the target. Effectively, because the mark is basically brand, right? So effectively, this is Crow. We got the team up, we got the defense break, we got the extra damage for each debuff on the target. It's Crow. It's the Dark Inugami. Dark teammates get plus 18 speed, which is a nice buff as well. I don't know who's running a dark team, but yeah. Then we have the Turtle Tank. So the Turtle Tank actually stumped me at first, and then I'm like, yeah, he's kind of like a mixture between the Penguin Knight and the Fire Lizard Man. So we have, and then 6-star becomes an elemental HP leader. I know my face is in front of the 6-star things and the leader skills and things like that. We have the air cannon, attack an enemy 20 to 50% chance to stun, damage based on your max HP. It's kind of like Penguin Knights. Then we have the recoil, attack an enemy 2 times. Each attack has a 50 to 70% chance to stack 1 turn taunt when the skill is on cooldown. 70% chance to counterattack when attacked. Damage based on your max HP. So taunt and stun, those are similar to the Penguin Knight. But this Twisted Shell passive, this is where we get into not the Penguin Knight really. When attacked, apply 2 turns of block to the attacker with a 15% chance to additionally apply 1 turn of stun. Additionally, your chance of receiving a critical hit is reduced by 50%, and this effect cannot stack. So this is where we get like the Lizard Man skills of the block passively when being attacked, and the reduced chance of receiving a critical hit. So that is kind of the Lizard Man skills. Next up, we have the Dark Bouncing Joker. So Dark Bouncing Joker is actually kind of like the Dark Martial Cat in Summoner's War. We have the first skill, which is an attack down, ignores enemy's defense, which this one is actually kind of like the, because the other ones are like the Drunken Masters, right? This is still kind of like the Drunken Master, attack down, ignore defense. That's all we needed, is a Dark Martial Cat with ignore defense skill 1. Beautiful. We're all screwed. We have the Chain Slap, attack an enemy 2 times, attack consecutively with a 40% chance. Again, this is kind of like a, I don't know why I didn't put the Dark the monster I just said, Drunken Master, in addition to Miho. I was so excited about like, oh, this is Miho, and then I'm like, and the Dark Drunken Master. Black Humor passive. The critical rate increased by 30% when you attack or be attacked. It sure does. When hit by a critical attack, counterattack with half damage and do not die from the attack. So it's a mix between Drunken Master and the Dark Martial Cast. So the next one we have is the Dark Giant, and a few people have already mentioned this is kind of similar to Basalt. I think it's similar to Basalt, but not quite exactly like Basalt. So we have this first skill, which is a taunt. Of course, that's like Basalt, the Dark Battle Mammoth. Second skill, Call to Arms, recover HP of all allies by 20% of your max HP. There's no defense buff on this, though. And then we have the Seismic Waves, attack all enemies, decrease their action bar by 50%, inflict one turn stun if target's action bar is depleted, damage based on your defense. So I think this is kind of like the Water Elven Ranger in that aspect, because Basalt, I mean, if you put him on Despair, then he will stun, but it doesn't necessarily stun. Basalt doesn't necessarily stun as part of his toolkit. So I think that this is mostly Basalt, but also a little element of the Water Elven Ranger. Then we have the Eurolon, the Dark Eurolon. So the Dark Eurolon is kind of similar to a mixture between Mara, the Dark Elven, not Elven Ranger, the Dark Amazon. Oh, video's just going to be an hour of me trying to remember names. Dark Amazon plus not necessarily Lulu. It's got a heal. So it's a nuker that is also a support unit. Fantastic. It's not confusing at all. He's very confused at what he wants to be when he grows up. I want to make so many comments, but I'm not going to. We've got the Spike, which is attack and incurable. We have the Honey, which is restore 20% to HP to all allies and grant immunity for one turn. That's where I get the Lulu from, the heal and the immunity. And then we have the Lethal Injection, attack the enemy, apply incurable for 2 turns. This skill ignores all buffs on the target, and each buff on the target increases damage by 30%. Target killed by this skill cannot be revived. That's where I'm getting the Mara from. So this is Lulu, this is Mara, effectively. What do we have next? We have the Pumpkin Freak, and this one is kind of similar to a little bit, because there's another unit in here that's like Bella, and this one's kind of got a little element of Bella and a little element of, to be honest, not really quite the Light Fairy, but it's a little bit like it. Not exactly though. So we have the first skill, attack an enemy 2 times, 60% probability to apply defense down for 1 turn. We have the Pumpkin Shell, remove all debuffs from the target ally, apply shield for 3 turns. So Light Fairy does something similar. She cleanses, but she doesn't apply the shield. The Light Fairy does apply invincibility also, but it's not necessarily the Light Fairy. There's probably a better example of this than that, but that's just the first thing that came to my mind, and I was like, I'm gonna move on to the next one. I can't think of the best example for this. Shield amount equal to 25% of your max HP. And then we have this Midnight Revelry, grant all allies 2 turns of effect up, recover 20% HP, and additionally increase the action bar based on the percentage of overhealing. Not really like Bella. I mean, it's lightly like some of these things, but it's not really a super like, this is Bella. Because, again, there is, which one is actually Bella? Not that one. Is it this one? No. Which one is actually Bella? It's not. No, it's not this one. This one? No. Where am I? This is Bella. The White Sharpshooter. Oh my goodness. Well, it's very easy to know that that's Bella, but for whatever reason, it's like, well, the other Inugamis are the other sharpshooters, so maybe just look at that one first. Nah, my brain doesn't want to work like that. Where exactly we are here, right? So this is, I mean, it's a little bit. It's just, it's got the heal, it's got the action bar increased, but it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same because it's only increased based on the percentage of overhealing. So it's a lightly influenced kind of, but not really by those units. So Next up, we have the Dark Occult Dancer. And again, this is another one that I feel like this one, the last one, I'm trying to reference something, but she kind of reminds me a little bit of Chloe. Not quite exactly the same though, because it doesn't do the same thing. So we got the solo attack and enemy damage based on target's max HP. We have the duet, which is remove all harmful effects on both you and the target ally, recover HP by 20%, and grant 1 stack of nullify each. And then we have the innervate, grant 2 turns of invincible to the selected ally, 1 turn of invincible to other allies. Okay, that's kind of like Chloe, not exactly like it though. Grant 2 stacks of nullify to all allies. If any debuff exists, trigger nullify to remove debuffs. It's like 50% like Chloe, and also the other 50% is not like her. So then we have the Dark Sky Police. So the Dark Sky Police, a little bit like a mixture between Frigate and Amarna. So first skill, defense break. Second skill, attack an enemy 2-turn mark. Afterwards, increase your action bar by 50% damage based on your defense. So it's a brand, effectively. So you have a defense break and a brand, like Marna. And then we have the double time, increase the action bar of all allies by 50%. Also grant them effect up and defense up. I mean, also, the defense up and effect up, that's not what either of them do. I think the Amarna, the only reason that I put Amarna there is because the defense break skill 1, the brand skill 2, and I think it's a defense unit. I think the Amarna is actually categorized as a defense unit. So that's kind of where I get defense break, brand, and defense unit. But in terms of everything else, not necessarily Amarna. There's actually another unit that is more like Amarna, I believe. Like very much like Amarna. I think it's one of the light units. But it's kind of like it, but it's kind of not at the same time. It's more like Frigate, but also not quite the same as Frigate either. So anyway, we have the next one, the Ant Cannon. I mean, a lot of these are like not just copy paste, as you can see. But I'm just trying to give you guys a starting point to kind of understand. So the Ant Cannon is kind of similar to the Dark Sylphid in Summoner's War. So you got the first skill. Well, also similar to the Brownie Magicians, because this uppercut, the other ones are more similar though, right? So we have this this one, which is very similar to... No, this is the light one I'm looking at. That's not the one I thought it was. We have this, which is like very much like Aquila, and then this, which is like very much like Orion. But then we have this dark one. It's not like the dark Brownie Magician in Summoner's War. We have the first skill, which is kind of like that. We have the second skill, which is kind of like, again, not the dark one. It's similar to the water one, the fire one, and the light one have this skill, which is an AoE 1-turn defense break that won't land as a glancing hit. But then the third skill, Ultimate Absorb, drains HP from an enemy that that amount equals to 50% of your max HP, and heal other allies equal to half the damage dealt. Gains an extra turn if the target gets killed by this ability. That's kind of where I get the Akari's from, because she does damage based on her max HP. And then she also does a heal with skill 2. So that's kind of where I'm getting that. And then she also potentially gets another turn as well. It's not quite like one, it's not quite like the other. It's kind of like a mixture. But next up we have the Archon, and the Archon is very similar to the Dark Lich in Summoner's War. This is actually a much closer comparison, because I know some of you are like, you're reaching with some of these comparisons. It's not quite a wonderful comparison. It's like a little bit like it, but this one is actually very much like it. So we've got the first skill, triple hit, speed break. We've got the second skill, defense break, attack enemies 3 times randomly. Always counts as an advantageous attribute attack. And then we have the third skill, Dictator passive, decreases the incoming damage and incoming recovery by 50%, increases your attack power and action bar by 50% if an enemy or ally dies, stackable up to 5 times. It's very much like the Dark Lich from Summoner's War. It is a very good comparison. Next up we have the Dark Bookworm. And the Dark Bookworm is, as you expect, since the tree one is very much like Lucian, and the fire one is kind of like Julie, this one is not like either of those. It's like a whole bunch of different stuff mashed up into one. Let's go see. So the first up, first thing we have is the light joker. I mean, it's similar to a few jokers, not necessarily the light joker specifically. We have the incurable skill 1. We have the skill 2, AoE, speed break, attack break. And then we have the skill 3, forbidden knowledge. The duration of all gained buffs and debuffs is reduced by 1 turn, but at least 1 turn remains. At the start of each turn, gain a buff that you don't already have from attack up, speed up, or crit up. So that's kind of where I'm getting that second column right here is she will change the duration of buffs, this LD5 right here. It's not quite the same as what she does. It's a little element of what she does. And then also this wind espresso over here will give itself a buff at the beginning of its turn. So, and then we have this second part of this. Additionally, the bonuses you gain from these 3 buffs are increased by 50%. When you have all 3 effects, your attack will ignore the passive skills of enemies except for the boss. Is that what? That's not what Jara does, though. Ignore the passive skill. Whatever. I don't know why I put Jara there then. I think I was trying to put or maybe, I don't know. Jara's changed so many times. I think maybe I wasn't supposed to put Jara there. Whatever. It ignores passive skills of enemies except for the boss. What else do we have? Next up we have, I don't want to take too long trying to overthink that and whatever. We'll just move on to the next one. So the next one we have is the Dark Ninrat. And you kind of think, okay, this one is similar to Orochi, and then we have this one's kind of similar to Garo. So the dark one must be similar to, well, not the dark ninja. So this one has a damage over turn, which same thing, right? Ninja first skill, and then damage over turn, ninja first skill. Second skill, attack an enemy, speed break, and decrease action bar by 50%, damage based on your speed. So this is more similar to the water ninja. The dark ninja has a stun in Summoner's War, so this is kind of similar to the water ninja. Shadow Step passive, grant yourself 2 turns stealth when the battle begins or your turn begins. Ignore target's defense by 30%. So similar to Odin, which ignores, it's a partial defense. So sometimes it ignores all the defense, sometimes it ignores partial defense based on the stacks. That's why I get the Odin influence for ignore defense by 30%. Increase your effect resistance by 50%, which is again Susano. Does something similar if you're under stealth effect. So he's kind of similar to a Susano meets Odin. Not really similar to the the dark one, the dark ninja. Next up we have the engineer robot, and the engineer robot is kind of similar to Amduat in Summoner's War. He has the deconstruct for skill attack an enemy, 50% chance to remove 1 buff, damage based on your defense. Skill 2, jump towards the enemy, probability of 80 to 100% to extend all debuffs by 1 turn, shorten all buffs by 1 turn while dealing, shorten all buffs by 1 turn while dealing damage to them, damage increase based on your defense. And then the Kernel Acceleration passive, increase your action bar by 20% whenever an enemy's turn ends. That's where we're getting the Dark Horse influence. Decrease action bar by 20% with a 60 to 80% chance when you attack the enemy. If the target's action bar is below half, deal additional true damage by 1200% of your speed. So speed-based damage. Dark Horse does speed-based damage with skill 2. He is not quite exactly like the Dark Horse, but it is similar to the Dark Horse. Next up, we have the Dark Gunslinger. Dark Gunslinger is kind of a mixture between the Ardella and the Jara. Maybe I wasn't supposed to put Jara in the other one. I feel like there's a better example of for that other unit that stacks random buffs when his turn begins. So we have the fast draw, attack an enemy 2 times damage based on your speed. We have the second skill, attack an enemy 70% chance to inflict 2 turn paralysis, speed down, and block. I'm trying to think what exactly is like this taser shot, because I feel like there's something very much like it, but actually kind of Cadiz, right? A little bit. I'm seeing that now. And then the leader ability. I'm seeing the Cadiz influence. I should have put Cadiz in here as well. Because the fire one is like the fire vampire. And the dark one, this is kind of Cadiz-y. This is kind of Cadiz-y. Increase your crit. Now I'm seeing more Cadiz. It's supposed to say Cadiz then. Just pretend I put Cadiz there. Increase your critical rate by 2 times your luck rate. Your attack applies 2 turn mark on the target. Enemy under mark will receive 10% additional damage. Oh, increase the crit rate was Ardella. She does increase crit rate. She also does some debuffs. This is Cadiz. I have no idea why this does not have a Cadiz in here. So that's a mistake on my... Why do I keep putting Jara in this stuff? Because he does a mark. This is Cadiz. This is not Jara and the... Hindsight is 2020. This is Cadiz. I have no idea why I keep putting Jara in here. I just want to stick Jara in places. I'm like, Jara never got uses in Summoners. Well, he recently, for a long time, he didn't get usage in Summoners War. Now he's used plenty, I suppose, after all those changes. But we have the Dark Bomb Man, and this really doesn't have, I don't think, a great equivalent. I don't know why I didn't just see the Cadiz right away. Like, that's very obviously a Cadiz. Whatever, guys. I don't know. So we have the Cherry Bomb, 30-40% chance to stun for skill 1. We have the Detonator attack an enemy, 80% chance to inflict 1 turn defense down and 2 turn bomb, single target. Bomb damage equal to 300%, 300 to 360% of your attack. And then we have the Premeditation passive, grant you 1 turn attack up at the start of your turn. Your attack ignores all buffs on this turn and additional turn after attack. If this ability is on cooldown, increases your speed by 30%. I feel like there's probably just some unit that's very much like this that I'm just not seeing. That's probably what it is. It's like, oh, you're not seeing... Because, like, I look at him, I'm like, is he, like, Liebly? No. Is he, like, the Dark Bering? No. Is he, like... I'm trying to think of what other bombers he's like, but not quite the same thing. But I'm sure someone's going to post it in the comments. Sure you guys having a field day with, like, ripping your hair out with the Cadiz. Like, he's Cadiz! Do you not see? All right, so next up we have the... You're going to love this. I should just re-record the video at this point. Next up, we have the Dark Ghost Captain. I saw the Cadiz here for some reason, but I didn't see the Cadiz. I saw it here because we have the Maelstrom passive. Absorb 5% of the target's action bar when attacks against targets affected by debuffs. If it's a boss, absorb additional 5% action bar. Otherwise, absorb 5% HP. So absorbing HP and action bar, that is kind of like a Cadiz thing. Yeah. And then we have the Ghost Crew. That's kind of similar to the Magic Knight. This second one, Phosphorescence, attacks 4 times randomly. Each attack has a 50-60% to defense down. That's also like the Magic Knight. I don't know why I saw the Cadiz here, but I didn't see the Cadiz for the actual Cadiz unit. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I think I need some sleep. I do. I think I need some sleep. All right, what do we have next? So the next one is the Annihilator, and that is similar to the Light Sniper. We have a first skill attack an enemy, 3 turn damage over turn. Attack ignores all buffs on the target. We have, so that's very much similar to the snipers. They don't do dots, but they do the ignore buffs on target. We have the overpower attack an enemy removes all buffs on the target with an 80 to 100% chance. Deal 10% additional damage for each buff the target has, which is very similar to the Light Sniper. And then we have the Scorpion Instinct passive. Whenever your enemy gains a buff, your action bar increases by 25% and gains 1 stack of Foresight. Increase your outgoing damage by 50% if you have Foresight. So it is the Light Sniper, is effectively the Light Sniper. And also a little bit of Cadiz if you think... It's a joke. That's a joke. All right, then we have the Wisp Catcher. So Wisp Catcher, not a 1-to-1 comparison, but he's a little bit like the Wind Anubis. Let's take a look at why. We've got the first skill attack an enemy, 50 to 70% chance to decrease action bar by 30%. Not really the Wind Anubis there. We got the second skill, attack an enemy 2 times, 80 to 90% chance to apply Oblivion for 2 turns for targets with a higher level than yourself, dealing additional 2% damage for level defense. Okay, Oblivion makes sense, right? That's where we get part of the Light Anubis. Then we have the Evolve passive. Each time the skill completes its cooldown, you evolve 1 level up to a maximum of 3 times. Increase attack power by 50% per each level and gaining the following effects in sequence. Increase critical rate, increase damage based on target's maximum HP, and gains 2 turns of shield based on damage dealt. Upon death, devolve 1 level and revive with 100% HP. So he dies, he comes back, and he's stronger. And he also does a skill to Oblivion. That's where I'm getting the Wind Anubis. Also, a little bit of Cadiz. The whole rest of the video, I'm going to be doing this. I'm just preparing you now, the entire rest of the video. Next up, we have the bear, Dark Bear. So the Dark Bear is kind of his own thing, to be honest, in my opinion. So he's a tank, he's a nuker. He's got the first skill, defense down. Recover yourself by 30% of the damage dealt. Damage increases based on your maximum HP. We've got the second skill, Hibernation, recovers 30% of your HP, gains 2 turns of sleep. Additionally, you will not wake up even if attacked. So these guys are kind of, just in general, like I don't want to call them Hufflepuffs again, the Hypno Meows. And a little bit like Cadiz. They're kind of like, it's going to get, it's already old, isn't it? They're kind of like the Hypno Meows, because they put themselves to sleep. They're tanky-ish units. We have the Sleeping Master passive. The more times you hit the enemy in the same turn, the higher the damage dealt. You can still act while in sleep state with a 35% chance you perform 3 additional attacks after you attack, increase 35% chance to take a glancing hit when attacked, and randomly increase your action bar by 0 to 50% at the end of the turn. Similar to the Hypno Meows, not really a... I mean, I guess I could have just thrown a Hypno Meow in there. We've been stretching a little bit with some of these as well, so I should have just put a Hypno Meow regardless. But he's kind of a little bit of his own thing. He's the Hypno Meow that didn't make it into Summoner's War, I suppose. But yeah, some of those are actually pretty solid. Some of these bears, I didn't really think too much of them when I first like the first one I summoned. I was like, oh, okay, I don't really care. And then the more you fight, the more you're like, these guys are kind of annoying to deal with. So we have the LD5 Dark String Maid. So Dark String Maid is kind of a mix between Wally Young and Dominic. So we've got the first skill, attack an enemy 3 times. Each attack has a 10 to 30% chance to decrease action bar by 30%. We have it's kind of like a Cannon Girl skill, to be honest, with this first skill. We have the Tea Time, recover HP of all allies by 20 to 26% of your max HP, grant them 2 turn attack up. Okay, we're seeing kind of more of the Wally Young here. Plus, we have the 25% speed lead. So between those two, that's kind of Wally Young. And then we have the Nether Gift, passive deals additional true damage equal to 40% of your attack when you attack. There's where we get to the Dominic. Additional damage increased to 80% if target's HP ratio is lower than 50%. Has a 10% chance to instant kill the target if its HP ratio is lower than 25%. That's kind of interesting. Enemy killed by you cannot be revived, and this effect cannot affect boss targets. So, kind of an interesting combination. She doesn't do attack gauge boost though. Otherwise, this would be very, very dangerous, I feel. This would be a brutal RTA combo. Or not RTA in this game, because they call it something else. But next up we have the Dark Puppet Artist, which is effectively Celia. I'm going to summon this one. I feel it already. So the first skill is a sleep. Attack an enemy, 10 to 30% chance to absorb target's action bar by 15%. Inflict 1 turn sleep. Damage based on speed. Very much Celia first skill. We've got the Cold Colors, attack all enemies 2 times. First attack has a 40-50% chance to inflict 1 turn freeze. Second attack has a 40-50% chance to inflict 1 turn sleep. This skill does not inflict critical hits. So, very much like Celia, she's got the AoE sleep. And then we have the Nightmare passive, remove 1 buff and inflict 1 turn sleep on a random enemy when your turn begins. Decreases HP by 10% whenever a sleeping unit starts its turn, except yourself. In addition, the damage you dealt won't break sleep effect. So it's kind of like a succubus a little bit. Also, decreases HP by 10% when a sleeping unit starts its turn. Is kind of interesting, especially if your opponent is using a lot of those effing bear teams. Also, a little bit like Cadiz. Let's continue. So Dark Assassin is, and the first thing I was thinking, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the Dark Ninja. Or not. It's actually similar to the Light Ezio. So we've got the Poison Shiv damage over turn is kind of like it. Kind of like the Dark Ninja, because he looks like the Ninja Transmog, right, in Summoner's War. So that's why I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, there's got to be the Dark Ninja. But we've got the dot. But this is, I understand the one that heals based on the dots. I understand the synergy there. But like we have an LD5 that applies first skill applies a dot to himself. I don't know why. And then we have the second skill, Cloak and Poison applies random 1 to 4 instances of a 2-turn damage overturn to an ally target, then restores 15 to 18% HP for each debuff they have after using the skill. Gain 2 turns and stuff. Why do you have to do dots? Why do you have to do dots to an ally? Just heal them and give yourself stealth. Just heal them. I don't know, guys. It's kind of confusing to me for an LD5. We have the attack power leader skill for arena. And then we have the assassination, attack an enemy to deal damage that ignores defense and bypasses the passive skills of anyone other than the boss. See, this is the one. I shouldn't have put Jar for the ignores the passive skills. I should have put this one, Dark Assassin. After killing the target, increase your action bar by 100%. So it is like the light Ezio. Then we have the Twin Blade. So the Twin Blade is... yeah, it's just a little bit of each of them. So a little bit of Vanessa, a little bit of the Yennefer. Actually, I think it's the Fire Yennefer specifically because I think it's her passive. And a little bit of the Dark Lightning Emperor. So we've got the first skill, attack an enemy, cast Air Slash automatically on a random enemy if the target gets killed by its attack. Similar to the Vanessa and the other Valkyrias. But Vanessa specifically because this second skill has a defense break. Damage, attack an enemy, inflict 2 turns defense down, damage based on target's max HP. That's a Vanessa second skill. And then we have this Phase Blade Array, which is where we get the 2 other units. When attacking, if the target is not under any buffs, your damage increased by 50% and you deal 50% splash damage to other enemies besides the target. That's where we get the Dark Lightning Emperor. The Dark Sea Emperor. After attack, if the target has any debuffs, extend all debuffs by 1 turn. Randomly spread debuff to other enemies besides the target. That's where we get the Fire Yennefer. Actually, this says randomly spread 1 debuff to other enemies, all other enemies. So I suppose it's not necessarily like the Fire Yennefer specifically. It's kind of like her, but yeah. Oh my goodness! I thought I was clicking on the arrow. Apparently, I was not. Next, we have the Dark Man-at-Arms, which is very much like Zeratu. We've got the first skill that does attacks and enemy damage increases as target's HP gets worse. 6-star adds 1 buff removal. The Psych Up, grant yourself 3-turn attack up and immunity, gains an extra turn after using this ability. Zeratu, we have the Victory Rush passive. When attacking, apply 1 turn damage over turn. If a critical hit has occurred, add 1 additional attack at half damage up to 2 times. So Zeratu. When the enemy unit's health drops below 50%, it's not your turn. Your action bar will be increased by 100%. That's interesting. That's not something Zeratu does, but it is definitely Zeratu plus there. And then we have the teammates get 33% attack. It's a different leader skill than Zeratu has in Summoner's War, but it's very similar to Zeratu plus more. Then we have the Dark Iron Fist. Dark Iron Fist is kind of similar to the Dark Archangel a little bit. Not quite exactly the same, though. We have the first skill, Strips, damage based on your defense. Okay, that one is similar to the Dark Archangel. Second skill is Pressure Punch. Attack an enemy, 80% chance to inflict 2-turn defense down, 1-turn stun, damage based on your defense. Okay, part of it is the Dark Archangel. The other has also a 1-turn stun. Which he does not have. And then the Fist of Revenge passive. When attacked, apply Vengeful Mark for 1 turn to the attacker. At the start of each turn, if no enemies has this effect, automatically apply it to the enemy with the lowest HP. This effect cannot affect bosses. When you attack an enemy with this effect, it always crits and heals you for 50% of the damage dealt. So he's got a heal, which this is, the heal that would be missing from the second skill of the Archangel, because he's got the heal there. It's kind of similar to the Dark Archangel. Again, it's not quite exactly the same, but it's like of all the units that are closest to each other, there you go. Next up, we have the Dark Dr. Evil, which at first I was like, what is this like? 6-star gets extra 15 speed, which I think is always worth mentioning. First skill is a double hit with a blind, damage based on your speed. Second skill is a 2-turn speed up, and all enemies get 2-turn speed down. I was looking through, and I'm like, what is this similar to in Summoner's War? Because there's got to be a unit that does a speed up and enemy speed down. And we think about like the other Dr. Evils, like this one is kind of like the Chimera, right? This is kind of like the Well, actually, this one is not necessarily like the Chimera. This is the stun and speed down. That's kind of like the Wind Chimera. This one is kind of like Zyros, right? But then we have this dark one. Not quite like that. Not quite like that. He's got I suppose, a little bit of the light Chimera in him, but mostly he has these two units. So he's got a mixture between the Dark Pixie and the Wind Penguin Knight. So the reason that I'm saying that is this curve space-time passive. I'm trying to get my head around this, guys. The curve space-time passive, when applying a buff effect to allies, reduce skill cooldowns. So he's got the speed up for all allies and then reduce skill cooldowns. That's something Mav has. He also has a speed down for enemies and increase enemy skill cooldowns by 1 turn, which is something that the Dark Pixie has. The 2A Dark Pixie. Additionally, after a skill is used by an ally, including yourself, there's a 25% chance that the skill will not go into cooldown. Is that like something from Summoner, like one of the LDs from Summoner's War? Or is it my imagination? Because there's some of the units that like I didn't get to play around with too much, and then I stopped playing the game, and then it's been months since then, and out of sight, out of mind. So if that's very similar to something from Summoner's War, let me know. But it just feels to me like a mixture between the Dark Pixie Cameron and Mav, the Wind. I was going to say Pirate Captain. Wind Penguin Knight. Yep. And a little bit like Cadiz. Just... Anyway. I'm just trying to make it a meme, guys. I'm just trying to make it a meme at this point. You got to go with it. You mess it up, and then you got to keep going. You got to keep going. All right, so next we have this Dark Electromancer, and if you've seen the other videos, you might have guessed that this is kind of like Gianna. So we got the first skill, Shock, attack an enemy 3 times, increases your action bar by 10% each time attack lands a critical hit. Second skill, Unstable Device, inflicts a bomb to target that explodes after 2 turns. Bomb damage equal to 400 to 520 of your attack. Ability receives a 30% effect accuracy, gains an extra turn after using this ability. So Gianna. And then this third skill attack on all enemies removes all buffs and apply 2 turns of burn. If the buffs are successfully removed, apply 1 turn of stun. Not quite the same as Gianna, but almost the same as Gianna. Very, very similar. And then the leader ability, 33% attack, and then 6-star gets an extra 20% effect accuracy. Next up, we have the Dark Music Queen, and this one, like the other ones, is very similar to the Nephthys, the Dark, oh my god, Dark Desert Queen. And also, she has a little bit more. I feel that it's a little bit kind of like the Fire Druid. You can consider something else as well. It's not necessarily a fire, like, oh my goodness, this skill is just like the Fire Druid. It's a little bit. So we have a Dissonance, same as Nephthys. First skill, attack down. Second skill is AoE. Defense break, incurable, and blind. 70 to 80% chance. Damage increased by 15% for each debuff on the target. And then we have the third skill, Flight of the Bumblebee. Grant yourself 2 turns of effect. She also has a leader skill, 25% speed. 2 turns of effect up. She also has 6-starred. She gets an extra 20% accuracy. So 2 turns of effect up. Then attack all enemies 2 times. Each attack can inflict defense down and damage over turn. Your action bar increases by 15% each time the attack lands a critical hit. So that's kind of where I'm getting the Belinus a little bit there. Flight of the Bumblebee. It's not exactly Belinus. It's just a little bit of Belinus in there. We got the action bar increase. We got the defense down and damage over turn. So then we have the Dark Sorcerer. So the Dark Sorcerer, a little bit like a mixture between elements of Jara, elements of Lydia. I think this is the one where it's like not necessarily just like Lydia. It's just I'm trying to think of what is the closest thing to it. So the wind one is actually kind of like the... No, it's not the wind one. Sorry, the tree... There is no wind one. The tree one is kind of like the Tiana, actually, in Summoner's War. So this one, not really that shocking to see that it's kind of like Lydia. We've got the first skill, which is a stun. Second skill is, and also the fire one is like Perna, which is something that I totally missed the first time. I mean, sometimes I'm just looking at these skills, I'm like, I don't know what this is like, and it's very obvious. For whatever reason, I don't know, I seem to not like Cadiz or Perna. They're just out of my mind, completely miss them, I guess. Mana compress, attack enemy, remove 1 buff, damage increases as target's HP gets better. So, again, it is very similar to the Phoenix. All Phoenixes, maybe not all Phoenixes actually, but the Dark Phoenix, Fire Phoenix. And then we have the Magic Curtain passive, reduces wide area attack damage by 20% on other allies. Okay, as long as there's any ally alive. Any ally alive. Oh, we already exhausted the battery. Good job, guys. I blame this on Cadiz. As long as there's any ally alive, you can evade wide area attack and use mana compress to counterattack. Additionally, increase damage by 10% each based on difference between the number of surviving units between allies and enemies. Is it still trying to find... Oh my god. I hate this when it does this. Alright. Yeah, it is kind of like a mixture between Lydia and Jara, though. Then we have Mr. Barbarian. Probably no surprise that it is similar to, because the other ones are similar to the Dragon Knights. Trying to get this thing working. I hate this. I hate it when it does that. Similar to the... I'm just going to turn my face off. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this is even better. Wonderful. So, it's similar to... the other ones are similar to the Dragon Knights, for example. This one's similar to Leo. This one also similar to Ragdoll, but he does have, and this is kind of scary, he does have elements of Abellio in here as well. So, just because, if you know, Ragdoll apparently wasn't good enough, I guess. He's got the damage over turn here. Attack lands a critical hit. He's got the second skill attack, and enemy damage increases as your HP gets worse. If your HP is below 30%, attack ignores target's defense, just like Ragdoll. And the chain effect passive decreases the critical damage of all allies received by 30%, which is interesting. Increases the action bar of all allies by 10% if any ally receives a critical hit, which is definitely Ragdoll. Increase their action bar by 50% if an ally's HP drops below 30%. That is kind of like Abellio. Increase action bar if allies' HP drops below 30%, which also is very dangerous for this Savage Rush. Like, if you do not have him under control, if you're like, oh, he's 25% now, but he's got, like, no attack gauge, I can just finish him off next. No, he gets turns. He increases attack gauge by 50%. So, it's dangerous. He doesn't do the heal like Abellio does, but he is, he's also kind of, if you think about it, decreased critical damage all allies receive by 30%. He's kind of similar to a Darian in that effect, or a Diaz. So... He's pretty dangerous. He's a pretty dangerous unit. Then we have the Mercenary Mother, which is, as the other ones are, similar to the Paladins. This is similar to the Dark Paladin. We have the first skill, which is a stun, damage based on your defense. We have the second skill, X-Cut, attack an enemy 2 times. Each attack has a 60 to 80% chance to inflict 2-turn defense down. Afterward, grant yourself 2-stack provoke damage based on your defense. And then we have a 2-turn shield, of course we do, that the amount equals to 200 to 240% of your defense if you get attacked without a shield. Counterattack enemy if you get attacked with a shield. Your damage increases by 50% of the shield amount. Very similar to the Dark Paladin. We next have the Dark Wandering Monk, and the other monks are similar to the Pandas. So this one is going to be similar to the Panda plus a little bit of the Smicer. So, that's scary. It's scary when you don't know where this is going, when we have two, well, I think the Smicer is more OP than the Panda, but that's just my opinion. Attack an enemy 3 times. Defense break on the first 2 attacks. 50 to 70% chance. We have a Penance, removes all debuffs on you and gains 2-turn counter. Afterwards, grant a 2-turn healing over turn on all allies. So we have the Panda for both of these. We have the Guild War Leader skill, 33 speed during guild battle. That's not something the Panda has, but we do have that, which is nice. And then the anti-magic passive, whenever an enemy uses a non-attack ability, remove 1 buff and inflict a 2-turn silence to the enemy with the highest action bar. So it's not necessarily just like Smicer, because this is a different condition whenever an enemy uses a non-attack ability. But it's still kind of wild. Remove a buff and inflict a 2-turn silence to the enemy with the highest action bar. Your attacks deal additional damage equal to 10 to 13% of your max HP. I think this is a potentially scary bruiser. Then we have the Psychosurgeon, so Dark Psychosurgeon. He is a nuker and a disruptor. So he is kind of a mix between a few units. He is a mixture between the Dark Succubus, plus a little more, because he also has attack gauge decrease, if I recall correctly. He also has elements of Crow and the Dark Poison Master as well. I forgot what the Dark Poison Master's name is. But we have a first skill, has a damage over turn, damage based on your speed. Second skill, attacks all enemies, 70 to 80% chance to inflict 2-turn incurable and decrease action bar by 50%. So it's similar to the Dark Succubus that does an AoE incurable. I mean, I suppose other units also do that. There's just not that many. Damage based on your speed, decrease action bar by 50%. And then we have the Infection passive. When attacking enemies with debuffs, each debuff increases damage by 30%. Okay, it's similar to Crow. Also similar to other units that do that, like Tessarion does that as well. Extra damage with the amount of debuffs. Randomly transfer 1 debuff from our side to the target, which actually that's kind of like a few units do that, but namely the Dryads. But it's random transfer of just 1 debuff though. Additionally, nullify debuff effects you possess and extend the duration of debuff effects you apply by an additional 1 turn. So nullifying debuff effects you possess is similar to what the Dark Poison Master does. So he's not exactly just like any one of them. He's a combination of these 3 plus more. He's just like 10% of one, 10% of another, 10% of the next thing, and then another 10% of, the Dryad and some more speed-based attack gauge decrease. So Poseidon as well. Just a lot of different things there. But this is gonna be interesting to see all of these different, like a Frankenstein unit that mashes up so many different things into one. And then we have the Sphere Sage. So the Sphere Sage is kind of like Cadiz. Okay, is not Cadiz. It's not Cadiz. He's similar to a mixture between the Dark Fairy King and the Lydia. So he's got the first skill, attack an enemy 2 times, removes 1 buff on the target, 30 to 50% chance, kind of like the Dark Fairy King. He has the Pulse Nova, attacks all enemies, 70 to 80% chance to increase their cooldown by 1 turn. Automatically casts his ability when in core form with lower damage and effect rate. Very similar, both of these skills very similar to the Dark Fairy King. We have the 42% defense for arena battles, probably not going to be used that much. And then we have the Black Core passive, reflects 30% of damage received. So, like Lydia, transforms into core form when other allies are attacked and accumulates damage. When you attack the enemy, adds damage equal to 15% of accumulated damage and resets after the attack. Again, like Lydia. Core form is immune to debuffs and action bar reduction effects, but cannot be controlled at the beginning of the turn if there is no accumulated damage. Value revert to Sage form, while in core form additionally grants all allies a 20% damage reflection effect. So damage reflection and then the extra supercharged accumulated damage, very much like Lydia. It's just a combination of Lydia and Nyx. Next up we have the Dark Specialist, which is kind of its own thing. We have the first skill, Gauss Rifle, launch an electromagnetic projectile to attack the enemy, 60 to 80% chance to paralysis for 1 turn. We have the System Hacking, deploy drones to attack, stealing 1 buff and causing damage equal to 20% of your max HP. Applying 2 turns of paralysis, drones cannot critical glance and cannot be countered. And then we have the third skill, which is a passive. After you attack, drone fires a laser beam to attack the enemy with the lowest HP and applies 1 turn of defense down. If the target's affected by paralysis, it will absorb all of the target's action bar. Drone cannot critical glance and cannot be countered. So potentially dangerous, possibly more for guild content. And then what else do we have? We have a Warner. Actually, this could be crazy good in... Well, never mind. I think this could be like a super easy unit for heavy metal. Not that that's what you need LD5s for, but I was thinking about it. And then we have, this one is actually very important because this is a unit that everyone gets. Can we turn my face back on? Oh, my face, no, that's not it. I mean, that is it, but it's going to have the box again, isn't it? Yeah, effing box. Okay, let's try to not move too much. I don't want to... Get out of here. Okay, can we just put this in front of my face? This works great. This is gonna work. Okay, so this is the God damn it. Oh, how to fail at your job on YouTube. Whatever. F you, box. I hate this thing. You don't need to do it that. Listen, box, you don't need to do it that much. Oh my God. I could edit the video, but who wants to do that? So this is a unit that everyone gets. I'm gonna just turn this back off. This is a unit that everyone gets. That's why it actually matters. So we've got the first skill, attack an enemy, recover 15 to 18% of the HP to the ally with the lowest health. We've got the local anesthesia, attack the enemy, apply oblivion and defense down for 2 turns. Imagine this like a Tessarion skill 2, right? Not bad. LD Tessarion. And then we have the chemical barrage, launch 6 missiles. So actually, let's go here. Well, actually, not like a Tessarion. It is, because I put the Hern there. It is like a Hern mixed with a Xiongpeng. So we've got that. I mean, that does do oblivion and defense down. So I guess that's why I put it there. Chemical barrage launched 6 missiles to sequentially attack all enemies, reducing their action bar by 50% when hitting a target with a debuff effect, extends their skill cooldown by 1 turn, shortens the skill cooldown of a random ally other than yourself by 1 turn, deals damage proportional to the enemy's max HP. Enemy max HP, attack gauge decrease. This is really good for boss stages. It's really good for Lost Tunnel Hard. Wow, I remembered the name of that. That's crazy. I think that's the most impressive thing in this entire video, is that I remembered the name of the Lost Tunnel. It's not the Shady Hallway. I keep thinking it is, but this is a solid CC unit for. And then what do we have here? Adds attack bar decrease and decrease cooldown. That's when it's 6-starred. But yeah, it's a solid CC unit that also does oblivion. I think you really can't go wrong. They gave us one of the best LD5s. They really did, in my opinion. And I think that is, yeah, we're at the end of not the spreadsheet, whatever. There's definitely not a spreadsheet. We're at the end of it. However, remember that in these missions, you actually get this unit in the missions. So very exciting that everyone gets it. Definitely worth paying attention to, and definitely worth, I mean, you should be doing the missions anyway, because that's where so many resources come from. But anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. and also a little bit like Cadiz. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you as always in the next one.